Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on the program. I'm Amarachi Ubani. This week, we're examining a coup within a coup in Mali. You see, first off, the president and the prime minister on the interim government are arrested and detained. Then the vice president confesses to being behind the chaos and then forces them to resign and then is in the process of naming a new prime minister and named himself as president. It's an interesting developing situation that I will be discussing with Professor Bola Akinteriwa of the Bolitac Center for Diplomacy and Strategic Studies here in Lagos. Also on the program, when the European Union takes a decision on Belarus for hijacking a plane and arresting an opposition journalist and his girlfriend. That's Diplomatic Channel in a wrap. But first, a quick check on other discussions in diplomatic circles, and we'll be right back. As ECOWAS leaders gather this weekend in the Ghanaian capital Accra to discuss response to Mali's latest coup, Chairman of the Authority of ECOWAS Heads of State and Government and Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo reminded leaders of the circumstances surrounding the coup last year and the process that led to key decisions such as the political transition to be headed by civilians in accordance with the decisions of the Authority of ECOWAS, the President and the Prime Minister of the transition to be civilians during the entire period, the position of a transition Vice President, the dissolution of the CNSP, the length of the transition to last not more than 18 months, for the civilian transition to restore constitutional order, and for ECOWAS sanctions to be lifted when the transitional president and prime minister are effectively designated and appointed. He called on leaders to remain resolute in supporting the people of Mali to find a peaceful solution and restore democracy and stability of Mali and to the West African region. The Nigerian High Commission in the UK has been commended for helping to end passport racketeering in London. The praise comes from Chairman, Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Erewa, to the new High Commissioner, Ambassador Seraph Tunji Ishola, for his efforts. Ambassador Ishola had, upon resuming his duties, employed strategies that led to the discovery that 18 innocent Nigerians had paid between £200 and £350 to racketeers to renew and acquire the Nigerian passport, following which the mission has resumed fast-track services in line with global best practices. As of March 31st, 2021, there had been a backlog of 18,000 applications awaiting processing, being an accumulation from between December 2019 to March 2021. 8,852 out of the 9,964 passports were captured from the backlog. Finally, leader of Israel's ultra-nationalist party, Naftali Bennett, says he will join talks to form a governing coalition with centrist party leader Yair Lapid that would bring to an end Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's time as the country's longest-serving leader. Mr. Lapid has until Wednesday to announce the result of his efforts. Mr. Netanyahu, on the other hand, says the proposed deal would weaken Israel. The Prime Minister, who is on trial for fraud, fell short of a decisive majority at a general election in March, the country's fourth inconclusive vote in 2 years, and one in which he again failed to secure coalition allies. Welcome back. Now, it appears the leader of last year's coup in Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta, has gotten what he initially set out for. That's the leadership of Mali. In the latest coming out of the country, the Constitutional Court has named him transitional president, just days after he declared himself interim president after staging another coup last week.
Colonel Assimi Goïta's declaration of himself as interim president of Mali came as he staged the second coup in the country in 9 months. According to the Constitutional Court, which also named him the country's interim president, the decision was made because of the vacancy in the presidency. The court ruled that Colonel Goïta should take on the responsibilities of interim president to lead the transition process to its conclusion. The two men who had been part of this transition, President Ban Dor and Prime Minister Mokhtar Wane, had both been detained by soldiers earlier in the week. Colonel Goita later admitted to having detained them, saying they had failed in their duties and were seeking to sabotage the country's transition. The power tussle, according to Colonel Goita, stemmed from changes being made in a cabinet reshuffle by both leaders, of which Goita was not made aware of. Two army officers involved in the previous coup also lost their jobs in the reshuffle. The two men resigned on Thursday and were released. Goita told the Malian people, "We had to choose between disorder and cohesion within the defense and security forces, and we chose cohesion." It appeared the rescue of Mali's political future did not go down well with the people. The streets of Bamako, the country's capital, were quiet on Tuesday following the attempted coup, as was being referred by the international community. There were a few protests against the detention of interim President Ban Dor and Prime Minister Mokhtar Wane, but were broken up by police officers. Mali's former colonial master France threatened to impose sanctions against the military for the arrest of the civilian leaders. The UN said it was monitoring the situation in the country and was working with ECOWAS in ensuring a peaceful transition. ECOWAS sent in a delegation led by the Special ECOWAS Envoy for Mali and former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan. The regional organization has decided to discuss in closed-door meetings the situation in Mali. However, it said it strongly condemns the coup, demanding release of the president and prime minister, and reaffirmed support for the transitional authorities, calling for the transition to resume its course and be concluded on schedule.
Your Excellency.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari, who has condemned the coup, is also participating in the extraordinary summit to discuss the recent political developments in Mali. He had already been briefed by the Special Envoy Dr. Goodluck Jonathan on the situation. Meanwhile, Colonel Assimi Goita says he will be appointing a new prime minister within days and that the election schedule prepared by the interim government will go ahead next year as planned.
Professor Bola Akitarinwa is no stranger to any of these issues, especially here on the continent. He joins me now from Yaba, Lagos. Professor, thank you for making time to be with me on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you for having me.
Now, let me just begin with, my own curiosity as to your thoughts regarding, this coup within a coup situation that's playing out in Mali.
I think that what you have called coup within coup, even though I will disagree with it later on, reflects the ineffectiveness of the African Union policy decision on a non-constitutional change of government in Africa. The policy is that under no circumstance will the Continental Organization accept forceful change of government or what is considered non-constitutional approach. It also reflects the general political mistrust between leaders in government, and particularly in the context of Mali, between the military and the politicians in power. You know that Goita, who is second in command in the country, who planned the initial coup, has alleged that he was not kept abreast about the cabinet reshuffle, which actually prompted this coup within coup. So in this case, there is a manifestation of mistrust. Again, when we talk about coup within coup, I think that it is still a coup within or continuity of the same coup, right, because the actors are the same. And in this case, it is still the people-prompted coup. Goita was responsible for the initial coup, but now they are changing the strategy calculations. And perhaps more importantly, I think I want to argue that what is called coup is expected, actually. Expected because of the situational reality of the coup in Chad. There was double standard. The African leaders kept quiet. They knew quite well that what the constitution in Chad requires is for the Speaker of the House to come in. But this time they opted to accept Mahamat, the son of Idris Deby Itno, to take over, which is another manifestation of coup in a different form.
Yeah, so this double standard that you're talking about, I mean, we are seeing it actually playing out in Mali. You know, leaders are meeting in Ghana with ECOWAS to discuss the situation in Mali. And I'm wondering exactly, you know, what they can actually do about this when you compare this to, you know, the way they approached what happened in Chad.
I cannot agree more with you. So in this case, the African Union umbrella covers the two. If ECOWAS leaders are meeting now, it is expected, but there's not much that they can do. You remember what was the sanctions they were able to take? They were closing borders, and they wanted to sanction the Malian government, not reckoning with the fact that it's an impoverished country. You want to close border, for instance. How would that one be possible? So the sanctions taken by ECOWAS before now have not actually worked. So if they now want to sit again and reflect on that, I cannot imagine any type of sanctions they would take that will not factor into consideration the French position there. So ECOWAS must first of all reconcile their position with the current position of France in Mali.
I'm wondering whether, you know, you find some fault with the arrangement that ECOWAS made at the very beginning, you know, of this school with former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan leading the delegation to Mali and discussing with Goita, and then eventually the resolution of, you know, the interim government and so on. Did you find some fault in that? And is that probably why we're here today, still discussing Mali and its political situation?
Of course I do. The issue is that the West African leaders could not differentiate between coup d'etat, which actually, etymologically, and being a French word, simply means forceful change of government. And when we say forceful change of government, they are thinking in terms of a government that is elected. So if you now use force to remove what they believe is people's will. People's will means election. But what happened in Mali by that time wasn't a coup by some military junta against the elected government. The government of Boubacar Keïta was elected, fine. But the issue is that it was the people that were against. They do not want him in power for various reasons, including the fact that he was accused of manipulating the legislative elections. And again, he was not capable of preventing the insurgency coming from northern Mali. So the people were the one who began, that's what they call the June 5 movement. Now, the M5 movement was the one that was actually fighting the Keïta administration. But after many weeks of protests, and it was getting to a chaotic situation, that was when Goita, the colonel, came in and took advantage of the people's distrust and grievance to plan a coup, which the people supported. But the ECOWAS leaders did not see it as a people's wish. They thought it's just military junta's interest to take over power. That's the fault.
My conversation with Professor Akitarinwa continues in a moment. Please join us again. In the back of my head, I'm thinking that Goita actually wanted to become president. He actually did want the military to rule in Mali, which is why he found this excuse about the cabinet reshuffle to get rid of the president and the prime minister, and is set to announce his own prime minister in a few days, according to what he said. But he's been summoned by the ECOWAS group as they meet in Accra, Ghana. What do you think could come out of that? You know, him attending that meeting and also him laying his own demands on the table.
Well, what I will expect is nothing more than a special plea. I say plea. Coup within coup as a concept is not valid. It's not valid because Goita, who initially was instrumental to the coup, is also the one now compelling the president. He is second in command. He's number two. And now I am thinking that he's still trying to be a projection of the people's will. And if hypothetically he's protecting the interests of the people, there's no way he will go to the ECOWAS meeting only to act contrary to the people's will. So ECOWAS will certainly plead with him. And in this case, I say it is not coup within coup, because Goita has made it clear that he's going to abide with the internationally agreed conditions that general elections will hold in February 2022. So he's not altering anything in the agenda. So what he has actually done, something must be wrong at his level with the president, apart from the fact that he alleged that he was not carried along. He didn't know. How would the president engage or embark on a cabinet reshuffle without the vice president knowing? So whatever is wrong at that level, for him to have now pushed him away and announcing that sooner than later he will name a prime minister who is supposed to come from among the M5, the June 5 movement. I think that ECOWAS will do well to seek an understanding without trying to, put a manu military conditionality in it. If not, it will fail.
Just finally, Professor, Nigeria's role. We're seeing President Muhammadu Buhari also attending that meeting with the ECOWAS leaders. And I don't know, I could be wrong here when I say that Nigeria appears to be trying to rebuild its profile on the continent, with its interest in Mali.
Yes, you see, Mali has always been a country of interest for Nigeria. When Professor Bolaji Akinyemi was foreign minister, he tried to take this initiative we are talking about to mediate the conflict in the country. The conflict has been there for long. But what happened was that Mali, and particularly France, believed that, look, Mali falls squarely within the Francophone influence, within the French influence. So they didn't want any Nigerian intervention. That put an end to that. Now that we are trying to do the same, when France still has thousands of soldiers in Mali, trying to assist the Malian government to resist the terrorist insurgency from the north, particularly the Tuaregs. It will be very difficult for Nigeria to act without consultation, without collaboration with France.
Professor Akitariwa, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you again for joining me on Diplomatic Channel. Last week, European leaders condemned what they call the hijack of a Ryanair flight by the Belarusian authorities, just so they could arrest an opposition journalist. During a meeting by the European Union, it was agreed the country's airlines should avoid routes to Belarus or from Belarus. Russia has slightly differed on its approach to the situation and insisted it not have a hand helping Belarus to force a plane to land in Minsk.
Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova, who had last week mocked European leaders for being shocked at Belarus's action, told the news conference on Saturday that the West had demonstrated a united outburst of hysteria in its outraged response to the diversion of the Ryanair flight to the Belarusian capital, Minsk. Belarusian authorities had scrambled a fighter jet and flagged what turned out to be a false bomb alert to force the plane to land on Sunday, May 23, 2021, and then detained dissident journalist Roman Protasevich and his girlfriend. Zakharova said she was also aware of speculations about Moscow having a hand in the incident. She'd earlier denied reports that 4 Russian nationals got off the plane in Minsk, as the others, apart from Sapega, were Belarusian and Greek nationals. It comes after European leaders on Monday agreed to impose sanctions on Belarus, including economic ones, and calling on the airlines to avoid the former Soviet Republic's airspace and authorize work to ban Belarusian airlines from European skies and airports.
Belarus used its control over its airspace in order to perpetrate a state hijacking. Therefore, the safety and security of flights through Belarus airspace can no longer be trusted, and the Council will adopt measures to ban overflights of the EU airspace and deny access to airports, to EU airports, to Belarus airplanes.
Leaders at the meeting in Brussels also demanded an immediate release of Protasevich and for an investigation by the International Organization for Civilian Aviation into Sunday's incident. The EU already has a travel ban and asset freeze in place on 88 Belarusians, including President Alexander Lukashenko, and 7 companies, over the crackdown on protesters following elections last year. A video emerged on Monday showing Roman Protasevich in detention and saying he's in good health and acknowledging having played a role in organizing mass disturbances in Minsk last year. About 35,000 people have been detained since the start of regular demonstrations in August of 2020. The president denies electoral fraud and accuses the West of sponsoring the protests. Other European countries threatened more individual sanctions, even the United States. President Alexander Lukashenko has accused ill-wishers of trying to strangle Belarus, whom he says changed their method of attack on the state. He accused them of crossing many red lines and having abandoned common sense and human morals. He says everything must be done to prevent a real war. During talks with his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, he said he will show him documents related to the incident with Ryanair. Meanwhile, Belarus's leading opposition figure, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, says a nationwide strike is being planned to protest against Protasevich's arrest.
There will be the second and I'd say the final wave of demonstrations, because protesting movement hasn't ended. It's always was continuing.
Over the weekend, the EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell says foreign ministers will begin discussions on Thursday on which parts of Belarus's economy to target with sanctions, and that work on a new round of sanctions on Belarus individuals was at an advanced stage without giving much detail.
This is where we end the program this week. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget, you can watch Diplomatic Channel again and also watch our other editions by going to the channelstv.com page. Go to Programs and search for Diplomatic Channel. There you have it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm Amarachi Ubani. I'll see you next time.